All right, and welcome to the School of Photography. Again, for those who don't know me, my name is Peter Gatt, and this is the School of Photography Anniversary Week seminar, and today we'll talk about color temperature. Now, color temperature refers to a lot of different things, and or we have a lot of different terms that means color temperature. So we'll talk about what is color temperature, why would I change it, how to change it, the preset menu option, the custom menu options, and then we'll open up for questions and everything else. Okay. All right, color temperature. So what is color temperature? Now, I don't know what just happened there. One moment, please. Sorry, a little glitch here. I apologize. There we go. All right, so color temperature means it's measuring the color of light, and we refer to measuring light color as degrees in Kelvin. Now, a lot of time people assume light is white, and it isn't. All light source have some sort of color bias, or what we call a color cast. Okay. Now, in the days of film were color balanced, and they were color balanced for mostly daylight. So, depending upon when and where you're photographing, if you're using a flash or photographing outside, you are okay. So color temperature, or what they call color balance, or sometimes they call white balance, it's all the same thing, is nothing new. Now, back in the day of film, we never used the word white balance. It was always color balance. And we had the same problems. And instead of using menus and so on, because we didn't have that with film, we had color correction filters, or just filters to correct for different situations. So if you're using daylight film and you're photographing under incandescent lighting, or what we call tungsten lighting, you get a very orange color cast. So we would use filters to correct for that, and we call that color correction filter. Now, a lot of time people do ask, where did the term white balance come from? Well, it was adopted from video. So video production, TV productions, they have a term, and they always had a term called white balance. Now, I used to work in Channel 47, it was called CFMT back then. And when we were working, I was in control of the CTR room. And when we were broadcasting, I would have to do white balance. So the white balance, I had to do three things. I had to check for color accuracy. I had to check to make sure the exposure was correct, and we had to ensure we weren't blowing up the whites. So whenever we had, I did the news. So whenever we did broadcasts of the news, the anchor and the other people in the news, if they were wearing white, especially white collar, the white clothing, we had to make sure that it wasn't blowing out on the screen, because when people were watching at home, you wanted to get this weird glowing effect, and we call that blowout. And that's what the white balance is all about. So we control the color and the exposure. Now, with digital photography, it's only for the color. It's not to do with exposure. We have other issues or other means of controlling exposure, and white balance is not that. White balance is strictly for the color. So it should be called color balance. And I'll slip up a lot and I'll say color balance, but I mean white balance. It's the same thing. They're interchangeable. So if I do say color balance, it's the same thing as white balance. So back in the day, these were some of our color correction or enhancement filters. So the FLW, this is a fluorescent correction. So with daylight film, if you photographed under fluorescent, it very often came out green. So mauve is the opposite color spectrum, or magenta is opposite of green. So it would neutralize the green and would come out normal on your daylight film. Tungsten or incandescent light bulb came out very orange. So blue would be the opposite of the orange or amber, and it would neutralize it, and it was known as an ADA filter. And then we had other filters called red, and this one here says red 25. And this is a very specific filter, more for black and white film photography. We don't use this for digital anymore, but it was a contrast filter. And red 25, 25, if anybody's ever come across this before, 80A, 25, these are called Ratten filter numbers. And that is invented by Kodak. So this is the Kodak Ratten filter. And this is number 25, the same red as this 25. So the idea was if you picked up a Ratten filter now, last week, last year, last decade, it would be the same color. It wouldn't change. So that was the whole idea of consistency with the depth and the deepness of the color red or whatever color you are purchasing. So far, so good? Okay. Now for the cameras, we have these convenient little icons. And thankfully, you have no idea how appreciative I am, that all the manufacturers actually got together and agreed on something. They don't agree on very much, but they agreed on these standardized icons that all the manufacturers use to talk about white balance or color balance. The only exception to the rule, of course, is Nikon. And when it comes to custom white balance, they use a different symbol. So if you can see the mouse here, this symbol here beside the letter K, this is for custom white balance. And Nikon does not use this. They use the letter PRE for preset, which is kind of confusing to me because these icons are preset. These are all predetermined by the manufacturer and you can't change them. This one is customizable. So I don't know why Nikon uses the term preset, but that's what they do. And that's what we're stuck with. So instead of using color correcting filters, we will use these icons to help us in different photographic situations. So AWB, of course, is auto white balance. The sun is sunny. Some cameras call it fine mode. Some will call it daylight, but it's the same thing. Shade in the shadow of the building. Overcast or cloudy. This is tungsten or incandescent. So some camera manufacturers will call it tungsten lighting. Others will call it incandescent. Again, it's interchangeable. It's the same idea. This is fluorescent, flash, and as I mentioned, this is custom. And this is what we're going to be talking about a lot today is degrees in Kelvin. And on some models, you are able to choose your own degrees Kelvin. All right, so if you have a Canon, most cameras will have a WB button either on the back, on the top. And when you press the WB button, that's your white balance, you can generally get into your menu and you can choose the icon that you prefer. So you have to look at the lighting condition that you're in and see which is the main source of light, and then choose the icon that best represents the lighting condition you are in. So for the Canon, you can also go through the menu. If you don't have a WB button, you can just press menu, go into your camera tab. That's going to be different from camera to camera. It could be in the first, second. In this case, it's on the fourth camera tab. And white balance, click set, and then you can go in and change your white balance and then choose the icon that you want to use. Now, the nice thing about Canon, which is kind of interesting, it's when you do select an icon like this one here, sunny or daylight, it tells you approximately what the degrees in Kelvin is. Now, this particular one, this screen capture that I have here, it's from a Canon Rebel. Now, Canon Rebel, you'll notice there is no K. It doesn't allow you to choose or set your degrees in Kelvin. But as you select the different icon, it tells you what the Kelvins are, which I find very interesting that it tells you what they are, but you can't do anything about it. So I kind of interesting. I don't know if I like it or dislike it. I think I kind of don't like it, but at least it allows you to understand as you choose the icon what is going on. And if you do upgrade to a model above the Rebel, then you will have the K Kelvin option to make your changes. And then if you go to white balance for fluorescent, then again, it's 4,000 degrees Kelvin. And I'll explain more details in a few minutes of what these numbers actually mean. Same thing on the bigger cameras, the 7D, 5D, 50Ds. The controls on top. Now, anybody with a Canon and you have these models, 50D, it's very simple the way they work. You have two sets of settings per button. The left is controlled from the front dial. The right is controlled by the rear dial. So if you never know which one to use, that's how they set it up. So left is the front dial, right is the rear wheel. And then you can make your changes, make sure you have the wheel turned on the older model so you can make the changes. And then get familiar with the icons, and then you can choose the icon accordingly. All right, Nikon, you can do the WB shortcut, push and hold, turn the rear wheel, what they call the main input dial, and then change accordingly, or press menu and choose camera mode, camera tab, go into white balance, press enter, or on the newer cameras, okay, and then you can go and change it. Now, Nikon, you might notice if you do own a Nikon, if you go to the white balance and you go down to fluorescent, you'll see a number 4 beside fluorescent. Why is there a number 4? Well, when you go into the white balance on the Nikon, go to fluorescent and choose fluorescent, you'll see that there's more than one option. There's 7. And all of these have slightly different color temperature. And it's a bit of a mouthful, but here we go. So we have sodium mercury vapor, which is a very warm yellowish light, warm white fluorescent, cool white, which is what we see very often in most offices and school buildings. Day white, daylight fluorescent, so it's almost like daylight. And then high temp mercury vapor, which we see in some swimming pools and gymnasiums and stuff like that. A lot of the hockey arenas will have high temp mercury vapor. Most gyms will have sodium mercury vapor. And like I said, a lot of swimming pools will have this type of lighting for indoor swimming pool. Now I'm just going to go back a bit. Let me just jump back here. The order. How does Nikon, Canon determine the order of these icons? The truth is, I don't really know. Canon doesn't make sense. Nikon, I can tell you exactly how they do it, and it's very logical. So I guess Canon's philosophy is if you're outside, it's sunny, and when you're outside, it's sunny, you might have the shade of a building, so then you have your shade, and then sometimes it becomes cloudy. Then if you go inside, a lot of people have the screw-in light bulbs or tungsten. Otherwise, you're in the office, it's fluorescent. And then if you're inside, you're probably going to turn on the flash. So that's probably how they came up with this logic. But there's really no other rhyme or reason how these icons are situated. Now, when we go on to Nikon, the Nikon is very logical with how they came up with their order. So with an Nikon, it goes from warm to cold. Very straightforward. Now I'll get to the Nikon in a second. There we go. So this one here has an auto natural light, auto detect, so forget that one. But incandescent is the warmest of all light. Then it gets a little bit cooler with fluorescent, direct sunlight. Flash is blue, cloudy is blue, and then you have shade is blue. So it goes in a natural order from the warmest light to the coldest light. Canon goes in order of outdoors, then indoors, and then flash. So they have their own reason how they do things. But this one here is more chronological in degrees Kelvin, and we'll see that in a little bit as well. All right, so again, these are all standardized symbols. So tungsten, white fluorescent, daylight, flash, cloudy, shade, auto, white balance. Custom, other than Nikon, they use PRE for a preset. So very quickly, I'm going to go through just some common scenarios. So inside, washroom, fluorescent lighting. So I got fluorescent lighting here on the back, behind me, and the camera couldn't read the lighting and it came out too green. So I told it I'm using fluorescent lighting and it corrected for that green. Pretty straightforward. There's a church near where I live and it's very orange. So if I gave this photograph to the priest, he would say, what did you do to my church? Why is it so orange? So I told the camera it is tungsten. Now these are the sodium mercury vapor actually, but it's very close to tungsten and it took away all that yellow. So this is outside and the house is in its own shadow. So the house is yellow, the earth is yellow, and the bricks are all yellow. So the camera is reading all of this yellow and says, hey, too much yellow, let's add blue, not realizing it's in its own shadow, which is a blue light source. So I then told the camera it's in the shade, and then we see all the yellow come back. All right, so someone asked the question, what is the difference on the Canon between AWB and AWBW? I haven't seen AWBW. Which camera has that? I'm not familiar with that one. 80D. Okay, I have to look into it. I haven't seen that term. So AWB, of course, is auto white balance. AWB, I have to look it up. It might be auto white balance warm. Let's give a bit of warm flavor to it, but I'll have to look into it. I don't know for certain. It's the first time I've seen that one. So it's the Canon 80D. Okay, I'll look that up. All right, so this is flowers behind the building. And it's kind of hard to tell with flowers what the colors really are, if they're accurate or not. So it's actually a bright sunny day, but I'm in the shadow of the building. This is downtown City Hall. And I told the camera I'm in the shade. So you can see more yellow coming through the image. It's a little bit trickier, but this is the overcast cloudy day. And this is ice hanging off of a shed. And in the background, there's another shed with snow on top. And you can see there's quite a bit of blue in this photograph. So I told the camera I'm photographing in a cloudy day, and you can see all that blue come out. Now the bottom here does look a little red, a little pink. That's because the shed itself is a deep red, and it's reflecting some of the red into the glossiness of the wetness of this ice. Otherwise, you wouldn't see it. So that's what's happening here. But otherwise, all the blue has been removed. And of course, skin tone. Skin tone is a big concern. And if you don't set the right white balance, you're going to get different looking skin tone. So her skin tone has quite a bit of red in it. And this is because the overhead fluorescent lights were turned on. And the camera sensed a little bit of fluorescence, so it added magenta. And we can see some of that magenta in there. But then the flash fired, which the camera didn't know. And therefore, we have too much red. So we tell the camera we're using the flash. We take all that magenta out, and we have a nicer, healthier looking skin tone. All right, so these auto preset icons we just went through, they're convenient, but what if they're not accurate? Because these are all based, like we saw earlier, it said approximately 5,200 degrees Kelvin for daylight, approximately 4,000 degrees Kelvin for fluorescent. Well, what if it isn't that color temperature? What happens then? So when we're looking for those icons, it's convenient, like I said, but it still may not be the best choice. So now we have the option of custom white balance. Now, custom white balance is a way of reading the light at that moment. So light bulbs are always changing. Bulbs get older, whether it's fluorescent, tungsten, whatever. Even daytime, when we talk about daylight, we're talking about the middle of the day, which is typically 11 to 3 o'clock. Now, obviously, in the summertime, we have longer middle day. In the winter, we have shorter middle day. So to keep it consistent, we go from 11 to 3. That's considered middle day. And that is what daylight balance is balanced for. But obviously, sunrise, sunset, we have different color temperatures. So if you want to get the exact color, how do we go about doing that? Well, it is obviously custom white balance. And custom white balance is that symbol. And again, for the Nikon, it is PRE. And we take a reading. Now, usually we use a gray card. You could use white. You actually could use black. Now, we don't normally recommend using black because sometimes we don't know how good the black dyes are in the material, if it's a pure black or not. So whatever we use, we have to make sure it's a pure tone, white, gray, or black. Again, white, gray, and black are not colors. They're just tones, they're shades. So even if you use paper, and if you look at your paper, you'll notice that some papers look brighter than others. And when you compare them side by side, white sheet of paper, you notice that sometimes some of the white paper is not really white. It has a bit of a yellow tint to it. So we want to make sure if you are going to use paper, it's a pure white paper, because otherwise when you do a custom white balance, it's going to take the color out of whatever surface you're using. Now, ideally, whatever surface you do use or subject you use, the surface must be matte. If it's glossy, it's going to reflect color from all directions. We want to make sure it's a matte finish so that it's not reflecting the colors from the area. And we're getting a good reading of the color in the room or outside or wherever you're photographing. So just like any other one, you go to your preset icons and you just choose the custom setting. Now for the Canon, once you choose it, you will actually take the photo. You'll take a picture of the gray card or whatever it is that you are using as a reference point. Then go into the menu and we go to the custom white balance option. So the white balance is set to custom, and then we have a separate option called custom white balance, and then we press set. Then it's going to ask, or it's going to show you the photograph you just took. It's going to ask you if you want to replace the existing information with the new information. You say yes, and now you are calibrated to that room or outdoors or studio or whatever it is that you're doing. You're now balanced for that lighting condition. If the lighting changes, add a new light, open the drapes, whatever, the color can officially change. So we have to re-wipe our custom white balance. Now for the Nikon, we go to the preset, same idea. Now with the Nikon, you're going to go through the motion. So when you go to preset, you're going to have the option to measure now. And when you go to preset, you're going to go through the motion as if you took a picture, but it doesn't record the photograph to the memory card. Canon, it records it to the memory card. You just wasted a shot to do that. With the Nikon, it'll be flashing PRE, telling you it is ready to go through the motion of reading the light, and it'll capture it. Sony does the same thing. They have the custom white balance, and they have it called set, and then you push a button, the OK button, and it will go through the motions. You're not actually using the shutter release, but it'll go through the motion as you're shooting, and it'll read the color of light and neutralize it. Okay. So again, the Nikon, sorry, preset, and then you can either measure photo or use an existing photo. So we go to measure set, it'll flash PRE on your top LCD screen and take a picture. And it will record or remove any color that's existing. So if you're using white, gray, and black, again, those are not colors. So when it comes to your camera, it's equal amount of red, green, and blue to make red, green, or to make gray, white, or black. So if there's any other color that's elevated, it'll bring it down to make all three, red, green, and blue, the same amount. And that's how it neutralizes the color. All right, so here's a photograph I did many, many years ago. So I was walking down the street with my camera and tripod, and I took a picture. So this is auto white balance, and this is the flower that I photographed. Now it's early morning, so the sun was still rising, and the house that these flowers belong to was casting a shadow onto these flowers. Now it was kind of later in the morning, so if I waited 20, 30 minutes, then these flowers would have been in direct sunlight. So it's not deep shadow, but it's what we call mid shadow or shallow shadow, and it's not that blue. So here, we have auto white balance, and it didn't really do anything. So I told the camera I'm in the shade, and it took away all that blue. You can see here, there's a huge difference between the two colors of flower. So now the shade, because I'm photographing the shade of the house, this is the correct color, right? Well, not necessarily. So like I said, if I waited a little bit longer, these flowers would have been in direct sunlight. So I took out my gray card. Now I didn't hold it like this. I covered the frame completely, but I'm showing that I'm putting it right where the flowers are. And I'm photographing the gray card. And I'm getting a reading. And the camera, on this particular photograph, this was shot with a Nikon D70. And when it takes it, it says good. On the newer cameras, Nikon, when you do the white balance, it says data acquired. And on the Canon, again, you're actually taking a photograph, going back to the menu, choosing this photo, and setting this as the new color balance of the gray card. So after I did my white balance, this is my final shot. So you can see it's not as blue as the first one, and it's not as yellowy as the second one. So this is the correct color balance. So far, so good. Any question on this so far? All right. Duplicate there, sorry. All right. So with light source, we have a whole range of lights, X-rays, ultraviolet, and then we have the visible light. And this is what we can see. This little spectrum here, spread it out, this is what we can see. So it goes from purple, blue, greens, yellows, orange, red, and so on. So this is why I hate the internet. The internet is a beautiful, wonderful thing. Lots of information out there, and with lots of bad information out there. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So I went to a bunch of random sites and called up for degrees Kelvin. And these are some of the charts that I found. And this one here is from 10,000, 15,000 degrees Kelvin. So that's a very blue color of light. And they call it clear sky. Okay, it actually could be like that. And then it has 6,500 to 8,000, cloudy, and shade. Cloudy is more 6,000, shade is 8 to 10,000. So it's close. It's close. Noon daylight, 6,000 to 7,000 Kelvin. That is so out of whack. It's not even funny. Then you have daylight, which is 55 to 65. No, daylight is noon or midday, and it's 5,200 degrees Kelvin. So these guys have a completely different set of numbers. Flash is 5,000 to 5,500 degrees Kelvin. Close. Nikon is 54, Canon is 6,000. That's a little bit different. Fluorescent, 4,000 to 5,000. Okay, that's actually pretty close. That's pretty good, yeah. Early morning, late evening, 3,000 to 4,000. It's closer to 35, but that's in the ballpark. That's okay. Tungsten incandescent, 2,500 to 3,000 is 2,500 to 3,500, but again, it's close. And candle flame is 2,200, so 1,000 to 2,000. That's actually not too bad. So some of them are kind of out of whack, but some of them are pretty close. So now we have this chart, 10,000 degrees Kelvin. Okay, that's daylight. This one here says there are some light bulbs at 7,000 degrees Kelvin. That's kind of weird. Cloudy, 6,000 degrees Kelvin. Yep, that's what I learned in college. So that sounds right. Direct sunlight, 4,800. Should be 5,200, but it's close. Better than 6,500 that the other one had. Tungsten, 3,500 degrees Kelvin. 32 to 35. Okay, that's close. Also 3,000, that's possible. Candlelight, 1,900. Again, it's usually 2,200. So that's pretty close. It's getting close. So again, different set of numbers from daylight, noon daylight, 6,000, 7,000, and here daylight at 4,800. Even here, daytime, 55 to 65. Whoops, wrong way. And this is 48. So different set of numbers. All right, and this chart, shade or heavily overcast, 9,000, 10,000. Overcast is not 10,000 degrees Kelvin. Overcast or cloudy is 6,000. So that's completely whack. Overcast sky, 6,500, 8,000. Again, that's not true. Sun overhead, 5,000, 6,500. It's pushing it. I would give it from 5,000 to 55. Flash, 5,000 to 55. Again, Canon is 6,000. So again, the numbers are all over the place. Household bulb from 25 to 35. Okay, that one is actually correct. Candlelight, again, it's very close. Clear sky, no, it's not 33,000 to 4,000. That's way too warm. It should be up here, 8,000, 10,000. So again, everybody has a different set. This one here, daylight noon, it has at a 5,500 degrees Kelvin, and flash to 55. So that's closer. Open shade, 7,500. Open shade should be 8,000. But again, you're getting the right idea. Partly cloudy, no, that should be 6,000. So there are different numbers. So who do we trust? How do we figure this out? Because everybody's all over the map, and it's really confusing. So go with the manufacturers. Now, even the manufacturers can't agree on everything, but at least they're consistent and they're close. Now here, auto white balance for Canon. Now this is an older model and they might have some fluctuation in the new model, but auto goes from 3,000, 7,000 degrees Kelvin. Daylight, like I said, is 5,200 degrees Kelvin. So anybody who shot film in the past, Motorola, Kodak, Fuji, Konica, whatever, daylight film was balanced to 5,200 degrees Kelvin. Since the 1980s, now earlier, late 60s into the 70s, it was 5,500 degrees Kelvin. And then they changed it in the 80s to 5,200 degrees Kelvin. But ever since the 80s, it's always been 5,200 degrees Kelvin. Shade, Canon has it at 7,000. Cloudy, twilight, sunset, Canon has it at 6,000. And I was taught in college, cloudy is 6,000 degrees Kelvin. Tungsten or incandescent, 3,200 degrees Kelvin. Yeah, that's what I was taught in college. Fluorescent, 4,000. I was taught 4,200, but that's close. Flash, 6,000. And then the custom, you can go from 2,000 right up to 10,000 degrees Kelvin. So remember, low number like tungsten is 3,200. It's a very orange color of light. And high numbers like shade, 7,000 is a very blue color of light. And then the color temperature is from 2,800 to 10,000. So you can choose. Now they go in big depths and strides, but you can choose between 28 to 10,000. Now Nikon chart, I'm just going to give you a little forewarning. Nikon chart is a lot more complicated, but we're just going to look at one part of it. So it's a bit much here, but on Nikon, you have the ability to fine tune the white balance. Now we're not going to worry about these numbers for now. We're just going to worry about these here. These are the presets. So auto goes from 3,500 to 8,000 degrees Kelvin. Incandescent or tungsten is 3,000 degrees Kelvin. Now that's very interesting. Let's take a look at this. So right here, it's written in black and white. Auto white balance does not work in incandescent lighting. It says right here, it only goes as low as 3,500, but incandescent is 3,000. Now, again, I taught 3,200 in college, but as the bulb gets older, it'll go to 3,000, 2,900, 2,800, and so on. But here it says it's not going to go below 3,500, and it is 3,000. So if you're shooting on an incandescent, definitely go custom white balance. But if not, go incandescent. It'll take away a lot of that orange, and it does so by adding blue to the photo. Fluorescent is 4,200. Again, that's what I taught in college. Direct sunlight, 5,200. Flash is 5,400. Now, Canon was 6,000. They're both correct. How's that possible? I'll show you in just a minute why they're both correct. Cloudy is 6,000. And shade, I was taught in college, 8,000. So other than incandescent, which in college we were taught 3,200, everything else is the exact same I was taught in college. So nothing changed in the 90s. And color temperature from 2500 to 99, almost 10,000 degrees Kelvin. Okay. Any question on that so far?
Peter, I have a query.
Yeah.
So by Kelvin, we mean the temperature, right?
It's Kelvin is in degrees. Kelvin is the temperature. Yes.
Yeah, Kelvin is the temperature. So my query is, when there is direct sunlight, it is hotter. When it is cloudy or shade, it is cooler. Then how can the direct sunlight have 5200 and cloudy and shade have range from 6000 to 8000?
Okay, great question. So the temperature had nothing, well, actually it does, but theoretically, just for argument's sake, nothing to do with temperature in Celsius or Fahrenheit. The way it was actually done, okay, let's get a little bit technical, but the gentleman named Kelvin came up with this idea to heat up a carbon rod. And this iron carbon rod, he heated up. And when it was glowing to the same color as whatever light source he was using, tungsten, fluorescent, whatever, he wrote down the degree that the carbon rod was heated at and Fahrenheit, and he wrote it down as Kelvin. Now, as something gets hotter, it gets bluer. So if you're familiar with flame, a blue flame is hotter than an orange or yellow flame, right? So we associate cold as being blue, but actually blue is hotter than red or orange. So as its carbon rod got heated up, it started to glow orange, and then it became a bit more yellow, and then eventually got to blue, and then very, very blue. So when that carbon rod got to 10,000 degrees Kelvin, it was glowing quite blue, which is the same blueness as outside in the shade. So I know we associate temperature as higher is hotter, but the carbon rod actually got bluer as it got hotter. And that's how this whole concept came about. So when we're dealing with it, 8,000 is a blue color of light, and 5,200 is warmer. Did that make sense? Did that help you out?
No.
No.
I'm still getting mixed up with, because direct sunlight, in my concept, direct sunlight has will have more blue as compared to cloudy or shade, because red light, the red wavelength light, that has less dispersion as compared to the blue wavelength. So the redness should increase in cloudy or shade.
I didn't quite catch the last little bit of what you said, but just the first bit you said, daylight should have more blue than cloudy or shade. And right. The answer is no, actually it doesn't. What happens is when the sun is blocked by the cloud, you have more blue light coming down than sunlight, the warmth, the yellow of the sun, because it is blocked by the cloud. Now, when it's like today and everything is just cloud, there's no blue sky at all, there's still more blue hitting the top of these clouds than percentage-wise of the sun. So you have more blue filtering through these clouds than the warmth of the sun. And when you're photographing in the shade, well, there is no sun. It's blocked by the building that you're in the shadow of. So all you have illuminating your subject is just the blue sky. And that's why the shade is so blue, because all you have is the blue sky illuminating. You're not getting the warmth of that sun. Okay. So when you're in the shade, yeah, there's an awful lot of blue. Now, if you are not certain and you want to prove this, because I'm a guy who likes proof. I don't believe in what people just say. I got to prove it myself. So if you want to prove it, it's very simple to do. Put your white balance to sunny. On a bright sunny day, photograph your friend, your loved one, in the direct sunlight, and then bring them into the shadow. Go up to the building, up to the wall, and photograph them again in sunny white balance mode. And you're going to see the skin tone is going to look very, very blue. They're going to look pale.
Okay.
They're going to look sick. And that's because the only light source you have is blue. Now, the example I gave earlier with the flowers in the shade, those were actually how I did it. I didn't manipulate it. I shot it in the white balance setting that I said I shot it in. So when I photographed the ice hanging off the shed, I shot the first one in auto, and the second one I shot in cloudy. So the first one was very blue. The second one wasn't so blue. It's a little bit yellowish, but again, the white balance wasn't perfect, but it was better than the auto. And when I photographed the flowers by City Hall, the first one was auto, and it looked okay until I shot it in shade, and you saw, wow, it's missing a lot of yellow because it was near the end of the year, and some of the flowers were slowly dying. So there's some green and some yellow in the plant life. So that was more closer to factual than the auto.
Okay.
So I understand what you're saying. We are taught to believe higher temperature is hotter, and we associate hot with being red. But in this case, hot is actually blue.
Okay.
So try it out. Try it out. Put your camera white balance to sunny day, and then shoot indoors with tungsten, indoors with fluorescent, outdoors in the sunny day, outdoor in the shade, and see how the color change. And you'll see exactly what is going on.
Okay.
All right, so I said before I would show you why the Nikon and the Canon, even though they're 2 different degrees Kelvin rating for their flashes, they're both correct. So typically flash, all other brands other than Nikon, rate their flashes at being 6,000 degrees Kelvin. Now the studio strobes, so not these flash, are 5,000 degrees Kelvin, but the flash, or what we call speed light, they are 6,000 degrees Kelvin. Now you look at the Nikon, you notice the front Fresnel lens here has a yellow tint to it. The Canon and all the other brands do not. So this yellow tint is to reduce the blueness of the flash. And that's why it is rated at 5,400 degrees Kelvin. Same goes for the built-in flash. So anybody has a Nikon flash or a Nikon camera, look at the front of your Fresnel lens on the flash. This is more yellow than the Canon. Well, the Canon has no color at all, it's clear. This yellow, it reduces the blue of the flash. So that's why the Canon and the Nikon, they're both correct, even though 2 different numbers, because Nikon is changing the color by adding yellow to the flash itself. That makes sense? Because yellow is the opposite of blue. So it neutralizes.
That's good.
Okay. All right. So to get the correct color balance without a gray card or white card, you can dial in the color temperatures in degrees Kelvin. Now, in the days and the past, we use color meters, and it would tell us the exact color of light. And we use a color correction filter, the CC filters, to correct for that light. And we have several. And then it created a lot of problem because now we have so many filters, it reduced the light and we had to change the exposure. It's a big mess. That's what it was. But we still have a color meter option today. And we can use a color meter and dial in the degrees Kelvin. Now, you're not going to get the exact number. Most camera companies don't give you infinite control of dialing in your degrees Kelvin. They'll jump. So when you're in the lower end of the scale, like 3,000 degrees Kelvin, it'll go 3,100, 3,200, then it might go 3,400, then it might go 3,550, 38, 42. It starts jumping quickly. And it starts making bigger leaps as you start going up higher. But we are able to get close and dial it in. So we do have some brands that will still make color meters. So Sekonic is one of the more popular brands, and they make light meters, flash meters, and they make color meters, and it will allow you to do all the above. So here on the right side, you can see it's kind of like using a glorified iPhone or smartphone. You tap on what you want to do. If you want to do regular reading, want to do color readings, and then here you have your color settings. And you take a color meter reading, and it tells you in degrees Kelvin what the reading is, 6,900 degrees Kelvin. Lux is for something else. Don't worry about that. And what we're concerned about is the color temperature, and it is 6,900 degrees Kelvin. Kenko is another brand. For those of you who are old school like myself and you photograph with film, you might have remembered there's a great light meter called the Minolta Light Meter 4 and the Light Meter 3, and then the Light Meter 5. And then when Minolta got bought up by Konica was not interested in the camera division. They wanted more the photocopier division and the printing division. They sold the right of the camera to Sony. So Sony's were Minolta for a very long time. And Sony, for whatever reason, didn't want the Minolta light meter, so Kenko bought it. So this Kenko is the Metre 4 old design, Metre 5 old design. And they have the Minolta technology, and Minolta was considered ahead of its time when it came to light meters and color meter readings. Now, these things are not cheap. So the Sekonic is $1,600 US. The Kenko is $800 US dollars, and this one here is $2,200. So it's not really in most people's budget, especially if you just want a general idea what your color balance is at. Now, I mentioned before, it's kind of like a glorified iPhone, and this really looks like an iPhone. And this is also a Sekonic. This is a regular light meter, flash meter, and it's $400. So to go from this to the $1,500, $2,200, it's a really big leap. Now, this one here does not do color at all. It just does regular exposure meter reading and flash studio reading. Now, there is a company out there, if you're really interested, there's a company out there. It's a weird name, Lumu. I don't know why it's called that. The website is www.lu.mu. I don't know what that means. And they sell this attachment now. It's only for the iPhone, and it's $300 US dollars. And it actually does everything from spot metering to flash metering, regular ambient light metering, and color metering as well. So here it'll tell you exactly what the color temperature is and the fluorescent shift, if there's any fluorescent lighting, the green magenta shift. So it's kind of neat and definitely more affordable. Now you can actually go to the website and download the app right now, and it's free. You've got to pay for this. Now, when you do buy this, they do have different packages. So this is what the light meter looks like. Aperture, shutter speed, ISO, and if the flash, how accurate it was. And that's the flash meter and exposure meter as well. So it does all the above. So here, you have to buy the different packages. So I said $299 because this one will give you, if you're interested in color balance, it'll give you what you need. This one, the Buy Light one, is not going to give you color balance. So you have photo ambient, spot metering, which you don't need this attachment for spot metering. It uses your camera for the spot metering. Cinema video mode, that's for cinema photography. Don't worry about that. But it does have a photo flash mode, so for your external flash or studio. So for all that other stuff, it's $254 for this package. So you'll get this device and you get this software. If you wanted color meter, so the color temperature, then it's $299. And then you'll get an upgrade to the app, and then you can use that function. Now this one here is pretty much the same. It's a huge price jump from $299 to $4.99. Now, I don't know if there's any major upgrade to any of these other functionalities, but the only other bonus or add-on is flash color. So this one here is taking color temperature of ambient light. This will take ambient light or your flash and read the color temperature of your flash. This one does not, but that's a $200 jump for your flash color balance. So not a really selling feature for me. I'd be more interested in this one. Okay. Now, what's the best thing for you? Just memorize these numbers. That's the best thing to do. So these numbers are pretty universal with today's cameras. Like I said, incandescent is 3200. Otherwise, all of these are pretty much standard. When I look at the Sony, when I look at the Pentax, the Olympus, they all use this chart, not the Canon one, but the Nikon one, with the exception incandescent tungsten is 3200. Everything else is the same. So if you want, I can send you this. This is just a little cutout, and this is from Nikon's manual, by the way. And just memorize these numbers and get as close to these numbers as you possibly can. Now, the best bet is obviously going with the custom white balance with a gray card, because that way you can get in between 5200 and 5400 if it is in between. But otherwise, you can dial in and get as close as you can this way. Unless you're really, really into photography and you really want to get a color meter, I really don't recommend it. I haven't used it in years. So custom white balance, I say ever since I went digital, custom white balance is really the way to go. But this is what we're dealing with. Even when you do a custom white balance, it tells you the degrees in Kelvin. So you want to know to make sure that it's not misreading somewhere. So like I said, best bet, cheaper bet is get a gray card and use the custom white balance. So Amazon, for those who like Amazon, they sell them. I was on Amazon.ca, so these are Canadian prices. These little collapsible 30 centimeters gray card, or 11 inches if you like inches, $27 on Amazon. These are a little bit smaller, 4x5 inches, and these are little black, white, and gray. The gray, white, or black, any one of them you can use for color balance. It also helps for your exposure. So you photograph this before you do your shoot to make sure your gray is mid-tone and make sure you're not blowing out the highlights or losing what we call clipping the shadows. We talked about that the other day. So it's a good way to kill two birds with one stone. So $16, very small, but it allows you to do a custom white balance and exposure at the same time because you get all three. This is also Amazon, same concept, a little bit bigger, 8x10, and it's a bit more expensive. Henry sells gray card as well, a bit pricier than Amazon. The Kodak gray card, they come in a 2-pack. This is a CMP gray card, 2-pack, and it's $35. The Lastolite Easy Balance 12-inch, $60. That's expensive, but that's the going rate. That's the prices that they go for. And a slightly bigger one, 20-inch, is $80. Vistech, they have a different brand of gray card. It's not the cardboard. The Henry's, it's a cardboard. It's paper, basically, so don't get it wet. This one here is hard plastic. It's the one that I have, and it's $35. The Lastolite, just like Henry's, it's $57.99. Henry's was $59.99. It's close enough. And this one here is $84.99. Henry's was $79. So Henry's a little bit cheaper on that one. And that's from Vistech. Downtown Camera, they have a, this photo doesn't show me what it is. I'm assuming it's a hard plastic. It could be paper. I don't really know. But it is 18% gray card, and it's $15. And then they have a folding. It's not Lastolite. They don't have that. Sorry, this is Walmart. And Walmart starts for $26.97. Now, Walmart, in case you're wondering, why does Walmart have this? It's only online. You will not find this in any of the Walmart stores. So don't go looking. Don't ask them because they're not going to have a clue. this should only be done online. And I was actually very, very impressed with Walmart. They have about 50 different gray cards. Now, with these gray cards, how it works, you're not buying it from Walmart. You're using Walmart as a middleman, and it's going to come directly from the manufacturer. So they deal with 4 or 5 different companies that deal with gray cards, and whichever one you find, it'll tell you. It'll be shipped directly from them, and it won't be shipped from Walmart. And if there's a problem with the product, you contact the company. You don't contact Walmart. So Walmart is just the venue for ordering, and they really have nothing to do with it. And the sales staff would know nothing about it. So those are your best option going with a gray card. All right. I know we did a lot in that hour, but any questions?
Peter,
Yes.
can you show us a video or something like that of how you are doing the preset for custom white balance using a gray card?
I don't have a video to show you. I can create one and I'll send you guys a link.
That
So
would be great.
I'll put it on my YouTube channel, and that's a great suggestion. So I'll do that, and I'll show you how to do it. I have Nikon and Canon, so I'll do it for both because they are both different. So I will show you how I do it on both cameras. I'll do that, and I'll set it up on my website, on the YouTube channel.
That would be great, Peter.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
And Peter, how do we use the color card?
Sorry, the color card?
Yeah, color card.
Which color card? Are you talking about the color checker?
Yeah, color checker, yes.
Okay, that's tomorrow's class. So that's the color calibration. That's what we're going to be doing tomorrow.
Okay.
That's a great question. So that is something totally different. So what he's speaking of, sorry, I lost the name. That's Ash speaking, right? That was Ash?
No, just Tamogna.
Oh, Tamogna, sorry. So what he was speaking of is this color checker. So when we do this white balance thing, custom white balance, whatever, we're trying to get rid of any color cast that is emitted from the light source, whether it's artificial light or natural sunlight, whatever. But when we go to show the image, sometimes some of the colors don't come out the way we thought they should, or they don't come out accurate. And this is a problem. Now, the problem is because your cameras don't have the ability to record all the colors properly. So they need some assistance. So the color checker is a method of telling the computer, this is what this brown is supposed to look like. This is what this red is supposed to look like. This is what this hot pink is supposed to look like, and give it values. So we're going to be creating a profile, and we're going to be talking about that word a lot tomorrow. It's creating ICC and different profiles so that the camera, the computer, and eventually the printer will all understand what the value of red, blue, pink, purple, brown is supposed to be. So at the end of the day, what you see is what you get. And that is the goal of tomorrow's class. So right now we're just removing color cast, but film, digital, none of them record all the colors accurately simultaneously. It needs some help. And the color checker is how we give it help. So that's tomorrow's color calibration class. And that is all about that portion of it. Okay.
Okay, Peter.
Okay, I have a couple more questions. Trying to figure out the D90 and not understanding it. Video will help a lot. Okay, so I'm assuming you're referring to the custom white balance. Sure, that is not a problem. I have the D90, so I will do the video on the D90 and my D600. The D90 and D600 have 2 ways of doing it. One is through the menu, one is through the shortcut. I will show you both ways. And what is your YouTube channel? So I'll email it to you guys. I actually can't remember what it is offhand. So let's give me one little second here. I'm just going to click out of here. And I'm going to go to my page. just going to change my share here. Go to my desktop. So you should be able to see my browser here. So I'm just going into YouTube, and that's my channel. So it is the School of Photography. I don't know what the actual link, the extension is. But if you just go to YouTube, type in School of Photography, you will find me. I only have 2 videos up right now. I'll post the last couple of classes that I did. And then when I get the white balance, I'll post them up as well. So if you just go to YouTube and type in School of Photography, you'll recognize this logo, the red, green, and blue, obviously for photography, red, green, RGB. So that's School of Photography. And I'll have them posted shortly.
Yeah, actually, there's Peter. There's another School of Photography from UK.
Oh, is there?
Comes
Okay.
up on the search. Yeah.
Okay. How can I come up? Yeah. I'm just starting with YouTube channel. Obviously, I'm not familiar with this. So if there is another School of Photography, which yeah, I guess there would be, just look for this logo. I hope that comes up. I don't know if there's a. Forgives me.
If we only filter by yours looks like the third on my list anyway. Third.
It's the third one.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I was hoping there'd be some sort of URL that I could show you. That'd be easy to download or to write down. But I'll get the URL and I'll just email it to everyone.
Just put it
somebody has it here.
Chat. Yeah, just put it on the chat. See if that works.
So it's not letting me go. Let me just highlight it. And let me just open up a new page. Yep, that's the one. So in the chat, the link is right there. So Tech found it. So that's the link. I'll email everyone through Meetup as well. So you can find it. But yeah, so I'll be posting today's class and the last couple of class shortly. And then when I get the custom white balance video up, I'll put that up as well. All right. Any other questions? Okay, if there's any questions, just fire away. Otherwise, thank you all for attending. I hope you learned something out of this. I hope you have a better understanding of Kelvin and custom white balance and white balance in general. And like I said before, if you want to try this out, I mean, it's digital. It costs you nothing to do it. Put the white balance in sunny and photograph in the different color conditions, fluorescent, tungsten, shade, cloudy, and see what the color differences are. It's really the best way to learn is to experience it and see what it does. And you'll see, yeah, it's. I know it sounds weird. When I studied this as well, it seemed odd that 10,000 is blue. You would think it'd be hotter, warmer, red, but it's actually more blue. So try it out. The best way to see it. So as I mentioned, tomorrow is color calibration, and we will be speaking a lot about the colorimeter. So we're going to talk about how to calibrate your computer monitor, how to calibrate your camera, and how to set up for your printer, because that's the only way you're going to get accurate color come out of your printer. You have to calibrate all 3 spectrum of it. Okay. And then again, as I mentioned, the Photo 101, Photo 201, Photo 301 are all on sale starting next week. And for those who don't necessarily want those, we do have Photoshop as well, and it's a 6-week program. Okay. Well, thank you all for attending. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do have any questions or concerns, always send me an email. So you can always email me at learn@schoolofphotography.ca. All right. So no further questions. Good night, everyone. And I'll see most of you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.